Okay. All right, good morning. We'll call our November meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. We do have one item before we get into the full agenda, and that is a little presentation on our Brt Branding Presentation. So, Michael, yeah.
Well, good morning. It was nearly 3 years ago on the eve of the OKC Streetcar's launch when Embark and the City of Oklahoma City learned that its award-winning Northwest Corridor for the BRT planning would be awarded more than $14 million to launch the system. Only months later, residents of the Oklahoma City area voted to fund more bus rapid transit. I'm thrilled to share with you the visual identity of Oklahoma City's upcoming bus rapid transit system. For months, Embark's marketing team has worked alongside Oklahoma City's own Cookcom Communications to develop a brand that is uniquely its own, yet belongs in Embark's family of services. Before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge Cookcom. Our partner is here today with us. We have Chandra North and Addie Chappelle, as well as Lloyd Rosen. He's here. He's on our Embark marketing team, Taishika Holly, and Megan Henderson. Developing a brand and visual identity is a multi-step process. It combines rigorous research and expert strategy and cutting-edge design to create an effective and memorable brand. Each stage builds on the other, working together to result in a timeless identity. Over the last year, Embark has met with the COPPA Marketing Committee on several occasions as our team progressed through each stage of this process. The BRT work group, comprised of residents, stakeholders, policymakers, and city employees, provided valuable input that informed what you will see today. In September, the board approved the overall brand strategy and the name recommendation, Rapid. The Rapid system will have significant reach across many audiences in the central Oklahoma area. Whether riders or advocates of public transportation, these audiences have been considered in all aspects of the brand, including messaging and outreach. Our findings revealed that our initial focus should be on residents and employees within 2 miles of the BRT line, city leaders and policymakers who will influence the overall experience of the BRT route, and also the property owners and developers, as well as business owners. Every aspect of the identity was shaped by the information learned from our research and engagement with the work groups while keeping these audiences in mind. Since then, our team has finalized the visual expressions of the identity, so let's take a look. The brand mark for Rapid consists of a capitalized typeface and arrow. The approach continues to use an arrow, as you see in the parent brand of Embark, while distinguishing it as a complementary service. The Rapid typeface is italicized to illustrate forward movement. The Rapid arrow contains a folded 3D treatment to show dimensionality that illustrates the expanded nature of service that comes with the bus rapid transit system. Rapid's color palette features urban sky and rapid neon. These two new colors serve as a primary hues for the brand, while tertiary colors include 2 existing Embark colors, the Embark Blue and Embark Gray. Understanding that Rapid will eventually form a network, the brand strategy outlined a preferred method for identifying each line. Here you see the first line will be represented with Northwest, indicating the geography, the first route that is under design and soon to be construction. Future lines will carry the same directional notation based on their geography as well. A key branding component at each stop is our pylon. The pylon serves as a wayfinding marker and a source of relevant service information. Carrying on the success of the streetcar's pylons, a static map will be present on one side, while a dynamic digital display will be included on the other. Every stop within the system will have a pylon. The Rapid Northwest line will have 9 unique vehicles. The 40-foot New Flyer CNG vehicle will have a coach-style-like windows and interiors and seatings. Let's take a look at the future when the stop at Northwest 23rd and Classen is in service. Here, just to provide a little bit of orientation, we're looking southwest on Classen. Our cross street is Northwest 23rd. And here you will see that we're linking our riders to the people and places that are important to them. We have 2 stops near this intersection. And our goal here with the continued continuity and connectivity of the larger Embark system, we know that connection is how we will provide value to the overall BRT customer. Here we are on the outbound platform looking south on Classen. To our left is Cvs Pharmacy. Our riders choose between driving and riding. Through elevated platforms, clean and safe vehicles, and other amenities, we are not only helping our riders make the most of their commute, we are expanding their experience and an experience that they'll want to repeat. Comfort is how we will compete. The Classen and Northwest 23rd stop is expected to be a high-capacity stop. That's why it includes a longer shelter and platform. From this perspective, you can see how the branded pylon with the bold neon color will help create clear line of sight for pedestrians approaching the stop in either direction. Whether it's getting to work on time or connecting with an old friend, our riders depend on us to get them where they need to be. Reliability is how we build trust. From the experience of purchasing a ticket to a smile on the driver's face, our riders will only choose us if we are accessible to them. A friendly experience is our open sign. A decade from now, we'll look back and applaud the efforts of this board, staff, and elected officials, and of course our residents, for investing in the Rapid network. Because Rapid will create a world where people can move freely and effortlessly in their everyday lives, bridging communities and making an otherwise expensive metropolitan area feel like a cohesive and welcoming neighborhood. So I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and our partners here at Cook Communications for helping us deliver on the very things that our work group and our focus groups have told us. And we wanted a clean, sleek, simple, and easy to communicate brand, one that is relatable to the Embark family of services, and one that is easy and recognizable and timeless. So with this, we have any questions or comments? Wonderful. Well, I just want to take one more moment to say that we've reached this milestone. Our greatest work is ahead of us. Embark's community engagement liaison, Kristen Torkelson, is already at work building relationships with our neighborhoods, businesses, and stakeholders along the Northwest line. And you can connect now with Embark Rapid on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So be sure and follow us on all 3 of those using the handle @RapidBRT. Over the next few months, we'll be working alongside Kristen to implement a public engagement plan that will carry us from the final planning stages to construction, to testing, and finally, the long-awaited launch. So thanks again for the time this morning.
Michael, thank you. Nice presentation. That's good graphics they put together. Gives you an opportunity to really see what a stop's going to look like. Thank you. Do we have any residents to be heard? If not, I would have approval of our minutes of our September 3rd board meeting.
So moved.
Are we in?
I don't know. What do we do here? Oh, there it is.
There we go. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? All right, thank you. Motion passes. Then we have minutes of our September 9th special meeting workshop. I have a motion to approve the minutes. All right, we have a motion and a second, and it's approved, so thank you. Our consent docket, several items on there. I don't know, are there any items that any of the trustees would like an explanation of by Jason, or are there any items you'd like to comment on, Jason?
Well, sir, I think they're all pretty straightforward.
Okay. Then if, I'll have a motion to approve our consent docket. All right, motion passes. All right, thank you. Items for individual consideration. Item A is a resolution to approve the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan Version 1 for the Oklahoma City Streetcar Operations.
Yes.
Eugene?
Yep, good morning.
Morning.
Read the PowerPoint. Okay. So we've seen this slide before. So number 4, part of the role for the board is to approve any updates that we did to the PTASP. We added 5 to this slide. So we have 2 safety plans, one for the bus operation, one for the streetcar operation. The bus operation is not changing, so what we're going over today is for the streetcar operation. So this basically, we had this slide before as well. This is basically the outline of the PTASP. There's 23 elements in it. This slide here shows, we just had an audit recently with ODOT. So the ones in red are the elements that ODOT has audited. And then this slide here, so the ones in red are the ones, are the elements that we made modifications or changes to. And we're gonna go over those now. So one of the changes we made, so we had a committee called the Fire, Life, Safety, and Security Committee. That's throughout the safety plan. So we just renamed that to First Responders Subcommittee. And then in section 2, safety tasks and activities, this is just an example of one of the line items in that section. It's about 2, maybe 2.5 pages of different activities like this that we went through and we modified some of the activities for each of the tasks. Section 3 talks about emergency preparedness. So we clarified the after-action report, the responsibilities, who's to create the after-action report. So when we do a tabletop exercise, a field exercise, or a full-scale exercise, there is always an after-action report to it. So this just clarifies who's responsible to prepare that. We added reference and purposes for the emergency action plan. And then the next one there, 3.1, we actually moved this out of the PTASP and into the, we also have another plan called Systems, Security, and Emergency Preparedness Plan. So we just moved it out of the safety plan and into the SSEPP. Section 7 talks about organizational changes. So we had a couple organizational changes, so we just updated the structure there. Section 20, maintenance personnel. So the maintenance personnel, they move the streetcars in the yard. So we change it to where they have to get fully authorized to operate the streetcar, but they will not be riding it in revenue service. But they got the full training because they will be driving the streetcars, in their yard, moving them around. And then the other one here, 20.6. This just defines, we extended it to 5 years. This is the management, the leadership team, the required training that the leadership team has to get. We just added the distinction on there that if someone new comes into a position, they have to complete all of the training within 5 years. And then this top one here, It basically, the employee records, we will only keep the employee records that pertaining to, applicable to job safety. Any other employee records, there's no distinction on when we will keep them. That's the change we made there. Finally, the last one, we needed to have a safety program. So these SOPs here define what our safety program is. So we had most of these. I think there was one or two that we needed to add, we didn't have, but we have to, per ODOT, we have to define what our safety program is, and we made that change in there as well. That are the updates, modifications to the PTAS. Does anybody have any questions on that part of it?
I don't. Any of the trustees have a question? All right. Okay, thank you,
All right.
Eugene.
We're not done.
So we have two parts to our safety update, if you will. One was the PTASP that Eugene just covered, and we have just a few other safety updates for the trust if we can continue with that. I did just want to mention that, I know that what Eugene just shared is technical in nature and a little bit more technical than what we normally get into. However, part of the program standards that ODOT has adopted for us as a rail transit agency, do require us to make sure the board is informed of our safety plan and that they approve it. So I know we've done this a couple times now, but I would just, probably each year we'll be bringing back updates to the board. So anyway, just a few extra comments there, and then you want to
Okay.
get the
So
rest.
there's a few more slides.
Okay.
So back in October 12th, we did a field exercise. So field exercise is kind of just with Embark and Herzog. So we updated the winter weather SOP, so we put it to test. So we kind of actually go through like a little drill of what should be happening. And we testing the employees, the operators, supervisors to see how they do with the tests that we give them. So part of it was, so now it was October 12th, right? So there's no snow and ice on the ground. So here we have the operator, Lanisa, so she's looking at imaginary ice on the track. So the upper right-hand corner is what's called an insert. So we actually hand her a picture of what it would look like. So she has to make like she's inspecting it, but then looking at the picture, and then she's basing her report off of the picture that we give her. This is another one as well. So this is Lanisa. So she's inside the cab of the streetcar. And then, can you guys see my arrow pointing up there? Okay. So we put pictures up on the dashboard of what it would actually look outside if there was ice and snow on the tracks. So and the picture in the upper left-hand corner is the insert that we gave her. And then this is Molly. Molly's over on the left. So Molly received a certificate of appreciation from Oklahoma City Police Department for her work that she did in the bunker. So Captain Barnes asked us if she could use Molly in the bunker during COVID. So Molly got to work in the bunker and do her regular job as well. So over on the right, that's just some of the teammates that were in the bunker with her. From what I understand, they did 2 nights of awards or 2 different days of awards. So these were the ones that were there with Molly on her day. New segment we're going to add to the safety presentation, a little safety trivia. Don't worry, you don't have to buzz in. It's one question. Are you ready? What is moulage? Anybody?
Yeah, Moulin Rouge.
So moulage, basically, the short answer is basically makeup that looks like an injury. So the previous pictures I showed you were from a field exercise. We also do a full-scale exercise, which will involve the police department, the fire department, EMSA, and they actually dress people in moulage, in the scenario. So when EMSA shows up, EMSA will actually triage them based on the injuries that they have.
Eugene, these are some actual photos from our first.
So we did a full-scale exercise in 2018, and these are actually pictures of the ones from our exercise. And now I am done. Any questions? All righty, thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve item A? I have a motion and a second, and it passes. Thank you. Item B is a resolution approving a change order with New Flow.
Oh, you didn't vote.
Well,
He's not got a voting screen.
there we
There
are.
we go. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Okay, now the motion passes. Thank you. Item B is a resolution approving change order with New Flyer America for optional pricing, I guess on our first electric bus.
Yeah,
Is
this
that
is
right?
actually for our second electric
Second,
bus.
okay.
That we have on order. And yeah, we have several orders with New Flyer in process, so it's kind of difficult to keep them straight. But yeah, we have our regular 40-foot CNG buses that we're ordering as regular fleet replacement, the electric bus procurement, and then, as you know, the board just recently approved the BRT bus procurement. But this one here is for the second electric bus that we'll be adding to our fleet. It's an increase of just under $27,000. You can see it brings the total cost of the electric bus to $916,000. And might pause there just for a minute, because we do get questions from time to time about our current electric bus. Are there plans to convert the fleet? How many electric buses do you plan to add? And the point is, they're very expensive. I mean, they're basically double the cost of a CNG bus. So we continue to, kind of cautiously adapt that technology into our fleet. We're still learning how to get the most out of those electric buses on the operating side, and then also on the maintenance side, right? So the one electric bus we have is still essentially new, so we haven't had a lot of experience maintaining it. So we're just, slowly integrating that technology so that we can learn best practice as we go. There's actually a list of the changes that make up that $26,000 increase, but I can tell you the majority of that is between the Quantum wheelchair securement device that we've added to the bus, and then auxiliary heaters. But again, in your packet, there's a list of several items ranging from reinforced heavier duty driver's seat to adjustable gas and brake pedals, that kind of thing.
How do we identify the one electric bus if we happen to see it on a route?
Well, that's just it. It looks very similar to our current fleet. I'm trying. It's very. I was going to say it's very quiet.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Oh, very quiet.
Really,
Okay.
that's
You
really
wouldn't hear it.
a way to identify
There's
it.
no
Doesn't have
sound.
an exhaust pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
just
we can
very
identify
quiet.
diesel and the CNG and all
Yeah.
that, but I just wondered how.
Yeah, we don't
Put a big
really
E on
have
it
like a dramatically different wrap or branding for it. It's just part of the.
So Steve pointed out, it won't have an exhaust pipe.
Oh,
Right.
okay,
If you're looking at that part of the bus, you should be able to.
okay.
Which route?
Well, we don't assign it to a specific route. We have, particularly when we first received the bus, we did keep it on Route 5 for a good length of time. Also tried to maintain, one or just a few operators using it so that we could, again, it's brand new technology for us. But to this point, the electric bus is working well.
All right. Any questions on item B? Then have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Item C is a contract for architectural services with Howard and Associates to provide architectural services for the renovation of our administration building on South May.
Yeah, so this is a project we've been talking about off and on for some time now, recognizing the fact that we are basically out of room at our South May facility. We've grown in staffing, we've grown in equipment, and with approval of this contract for A&E services, we'll be able to do a space plan of our existing headquarters building, if you will. And it'll also allow for us to plan for a complete renovation of the space. The overall construction budget that we're estimating at this point is about $3 million. Obviously, that will change as the architect gets in, does their cost estimates, but that's our best estimate at this time. One of the other things that we're going to have the architect look at is just kind of the sequencing and the schedule of when we do the renovation, what's the best way to do it? You know, do we move part of our staff out and renovate a part of the space, move people back in? We know we need more square footage, so one option might be to add some space to the existing facility, move people in there, and then renovate the space they just vacated. So they're going to help us with that, which is a big piece of the puzzle. How do you continue operations while basically your entire building is going to eventually be renovated? One correction to the memo, we have source of funds as the transit operating fund. We do not pay for A&E out of our operating budget. That'll come from our capital reserves or our grant. And in this case, we do have a federal grant that is funding the majority of our A&E expenses for this project.
All right, any questions? Do we have any employees in Union Station still?
Yes, we do. We have basically our finance division that's currently still officing over in Union Station. And as you know, there's a pending transfer of ownership of Union Station from COTPA to the city. We anticipate being able to keep people in Union Station until we get the South May renovations complete.
That's what I was wondering. All right. All right, do I have a motion to approve item C? Okay, there we go. Vote, all in favor, say aye. Thank you. Motion, item C passes. Item D is a resolution authorizing the administrator to apply for Surface Transportation Block Grant to fund Embark's fixed route bus project and approve a local match funding up to $202,000.
So this item here again is as mentioned, a resolution authorizing applying for STBG UZA funds. That's a competitive grant program, and we have been successful over the last couple of years in being awarded funds for transit through that STBG program. So with approval of this item, we will simply commit to matching up to 20% of the cost of 2 CNG replacement buses if we're awarded the funds.
All right. Do I have a motion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item E is another, I guess, approving grant under for buses and bus facilities infrastructure program and approving and allocating matching funds of up to $2 million.
Yes, sir. Very similar. We are competing for some grant funds for sure to try to keep our fleet in a state of good repair. Whereas the previous item was really a competitive grant program managed by ACOG, this is a competitive grant program administered by the FTA. So with approval of this resolution, we will essentially be applying for 5339B funds, which is a competitive bus and bus facilities program through the FTA. We have applied for funding to provide for the replacement of 8 of the large fixed route buses and then 15 of our paratransit buses. And just to give you a sense of where that puts us in terms of our rolling stock and how much of our rolling stock is within useful life, we've really done, and I should give credit to staff for sure, really done a good job of managing the replacement of our fixed route buses. You know, at one time we got quite behind replacing those because of some reductions in federal funds. But we are staying caught up with our fixed route buses. With the approval of, if we're successful with this grant in particular, we'll have enough funding to completely finish replacing the few 09s that we have left to replace, and will allow us to start getting ahead and working and having funds to replace our 2011 buses that will be up for replacement in 2023. So it really puts us in a good position, proactive position, if we're awarded this grant. And then similarly on the paratransits, we do have at least 11 of our paratransits that are currently past useful life, and with these 15, if we're successful in obtaining the grant, we'll be able to replace those buses as well.
Under the grant, is it an all or nothing?
No, actually, we have indicated in our grant application that it is scalable. So although we, for example, we've asked for funding for 8 fixed route buses, if we get enough, if they only award enough for 4, then we're able to do that.
I see. All right, thank you. Any other questions by any of the trustees? Then do I have a motion to approve item E? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye, or vote aye. It passes. Thank you. Item F is Customer Individual Rules of Conduct Policy and Procedures, replacing the Rider Conduct Policy to establish rules of contact while members of the public are accessing our services and facilities. And I guess Kristen's going to give us a little update on that.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. So I basically have served as the manager of customer service for the last year and a half. That has now transitioned to Lisa Hubble, but one of my tasks was to look at the current rider conduct policy and give it a fresh up. So we'll talk about some changes. So we first adopted the policy in 2013, so it's been a little bit. The policy is to ensure that Brt customers experience pleasant, safe, and secure services. That is our big goal. But since then, since 2013, Brt has added new services, and we also own and maintain new facilities. So we just wanted to make sure that the policy covered everything that we manage. So basically, the old policy covered fixed route and the transit center only, focused on the rider only. So we have changed some terminology as well. There was some vague terminology regarding violations, so we just wanted to be very clear on everything. There were also only 3 levels of suspension, and so some of the violations that were kind of clumped together didn't really deserve, one level and could be better fit in a different level. So new code of conduct, it includes all of Brt facilities and services. We focus on all customers and members of the public, so we use terminology like customers and individuals instead of riders, because that's not what, we don't reference our customers as riders. It also clarifies all the misconduct violations, and we've expanded it from 3 levels to 5. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay.
One of the things I would like to mention is when I think, Kristen, you're getting to this, but with the 5 levels of suspension, if you will, it basically provides more flexibility.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, we never like to suspend anybody from our service. We're there to serve the public, but on occasion, and it's not necessarily customers. We could have individuals in the community that, for whatever reason, trespass on our properties and might cause a disturbance. And so we have to have a procedure or a process in place to be able to deal with that and exclude them from, accessing the property again. So sometimes that happens. But the one takeaway, again, is we want to serve everyone that needs transportation. If someone does receive a notice of suspension, we do have an appeals process. Do you want to comment on the appeals process?
Sure.
At all, just so we know that that's part of the...
Right. So there is an appeals process where the individual who is served has the opportunity to either decrease their suspension time or maybe it just goes away in general, depending on what the situation is. So that's always an option, so. And it's open to everybody. And, you know, think
So
about
who
it
do
too.
they appeal to if there's a concern?
So we have somebody on the safety team that they would talk to about that and review the case, basically. So,
Yeah, and if somebody is advised that they're unable to use our service, they're provided all that information at the time, that if they want to appeal, this is who they contact, this is how much time they have to contact us. And as Kristen mentioned, I mean, I've been in a few of those appeal meetings, if you will. We generally, I can't think of a single time we haven't either reinstated someone, given them a second chance, or modified their original suspension quite a bit. So we try to work with people, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I appreciate the clarifications. I think my concern, and I'm wondering if you all can help assuage them, is I've kind of had a shift in my thinking over the last year and a half, just when it comes to our criminal justice system and these sorts of things. So I think one thing I would want to make sure I'm understanding is that this isn't putting any of our customers at an increased chance of an interaction with law enforcement or the jail. Is that making sense what I'm saying?
Yep.
No, I mean, generally, no, it shouldn't. This is more or less a code of conduct where if you're going to use transit services or you're going to use parking services, we have certain rules. If those rules are not complied with, then it's something that we deal with internally. Our supervisors will interact directly with the individual and advise them they're breaking the rules or they've been suspended. On occasion, we will use our contracted security, to perhaps help us deliver that information. The only time law enforcement would get involved is if they were in fact, breaking the law while they're on our property, which is what, I would think any business would do is call the police if there's,
More often than not,
disturbance
though,
of
a
the
supervisor is called.
What
And
is our
that's-
mask mandate on public transportation, or what is the rule for masks?
It's still required.
It's what?
The masks are still required,
By the FTA.
correct.
On riding a bus or something?
Yep, or streetcar, yep.
Have we had any experience like the airlines have of refusal to do that? Or?
Not to that level,
Okay,
thank goodness, but.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
What, to the earlier comments about we've really not operated in a way where we've seen folk suspended a lot, or that we've been able to have an appeals process. Do we have any records of that? Like, I'd love to kind of get a better sense of how often things escalate to such a place where someone who is using our service finds themselves unable to use them. I don't know how common that is. And I guess the reason why I'm saying all this also is I'm just really thinking about Councilwoman Nice's Human Rights Commission that's coming back into existence right now, and looking at that sort of restorative process that they're exploring through that. And then I'm also just thinking about just the mental health of our people right now, and the acts of desperation just the mental state a lot of our people are in right now, and have no idea why they're acting the way that they are. And so I worry about what happens when someone acts out and then they don't have access via our services to their employment or their education opportunities or these sorts of things. I'm not against what we're doing right here. I'm just voicing what I feel are some pretty human concerns.
Yeah, I would just acknowledge that we as staff are sensitive to that as well. I mean, as I mentioned, we want to serve anybody that needs transportation within the community. We just have to also balance that with the safety of our employees and the safety of our other customers. But we do have records of any type of suspension that we've issued, and we can certainly provide that to you, or I can meet with you and we can go over those records. We have enhanced our working relationship with the Mental Health Association, and I don't know, Jesse, do you want to share just real quick what we're doing with the Mental Health Association, if you don't mind?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we've partnered with the Mental Health Association. We've given all of our operators. They have a task force that will operates between 8 and 5. We've given all of our operators, our supervisors and dispatchers, their contact information. It's basically like a business card. And so that gives you an opportunity to basically, before things escalate to calling the police, the opportunity to reach out to the Mental Health Association and allow that task force to come out and see if there's ways that we can help any individuals that we're having any issues with. Yep, absolutely.
Thanks
then-
for, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I was going to say, and just to kind of go back to what Kristen was saying, so our operators are trained to, obviously not try to escalate anything. And so the first step is always to contact a supervisor to come out and see if they can talk someone down or be able to ask them to remove themselves from the bus so we can maintain our service. The last step is always to call OCPD.
Thanks for reminding us about this partnership with the Mental Health Association. I think that's a very important one. So thanks for the work you're doing.
All right, any other questions? Then we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Item F. Item G is a lease agreement to enable construction of Oklahoma River Cruises passenger ferry landing to serve the First Americans Museum and plan for further development. And I am personally excited to have a little presentation by our former city manager, Mr. Jim Couch. And I welcome you to the podium, sir. We want to hear from you now. Come on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm here on behalf of the Chickasaw Nation today. I do some consulting work for them. And there was an announcement a couple of weeks ago about a $300 million development adjacent to the First American Museum that will include a little over 400 key resort hotel, indoor water parks, a Native American marketplace, parking garage, some commercial in the first phase. We've been working with Mr. Bryant on this. There's going to be a TIF was approved for that development in December of 2018, and so we were working out the details on that yesterday afternoon. And as a part of it, there's also an amphitheater. There's a pedestrian bridge over the river that was funded as part of MAPS 4, and some trail improvements down there. And now we have an opportunity to put a ferry landing in there. And we put an application in with Cockpit we didn't do it, Cockpit put in an application for some federal funds, and that was awarded. And we will, the Chickasaws will be matching that federal fund. And this part of it will be on the property adjacent to the river and adjacent to the First Americans Museum. And this is the lease so that the part of the ferry landing can be on that property. And so we're excited about that and adding those amenities to this proposed project. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, we want to thank you for your matching dollars on that.
Yeah, well, it's an important project. It really is I think it'll be transformational down there.
Fantastic looking project.
It's really to generate activity down there to hopefully make the First American Museum more successful, have more people down there for the museum. So hopefully it'll be a win-win for the city, the Chickasaws, and the First American Museum.
Any questions while we have Jim here? I mean, it was a good article. I mean, the press has covered this development quite well, and it's an exciting development for Oklahoma City.
It very much is.
Thank you, Jim. Do we have a motion to approve item G? Vote, all in favor, motion passes. All right, I would have a motion on item H to move that to the end of our agenda to go into executive session. So do I have a motion to do that?
Do you need a voice motion? I'll move that.
Okay. And we need all in favor, we need each person to vote.
Yes.
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 All right, thank you. All right. Our next item is ratification of payroll and vendor claims for the period in September 8th through September 28th. And then also ratification of payroll and vendor claims for October 5th through October 26th. Can we vote on those as one?
No.
No. All right. Item A, need a motion. All right, motion passes. Item B. All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, our financial reports, copy the schedule of revenue and expenditures, budget to actual for the month ending August 31st. Any comments, Jason? Jason usually has a few comments on our financials.
Sure, I'll share a few things with the trust. I would like to, if I could, just direct your attention to it's the second budget to actual in your packet. It's for the 3 months ending September 30th, 2021. Because we didn't have a board meeting last month, you actually have two financials, but I think it makes sense to talk about the most current one. So with that, if I can direct your attention to page 2 of that budget to actual, that's the Transportation Operations budget to actual, again, ending September 30th. So we're through the first quarter of the fiscal year in our review here today. Point out a couple of things to you. One would direct your attention to really the bottom line, which is the operating loss or income. And you can see that through 3 months of the fiscal year, we are operating at a surplus. In other words, our revenues exceed our expenditures by, I believe that's approximately I'm so sorry, I'm having a hard time seeing that. There's a surplus there of about 600,000, I believe. Okay. Two things to draw your attention to, though. One is the up on the revenue section, the federal grant revenue and the FTA CARES reimbursement. You'll see that with the federal grants, we show to be under budget with what we've drawn. And then on the FTA CARES reimbursement, we show to be over budget. And just a quick explanation there, because those numbers are fairly significant. 675,000 under on federal grants, and then 800,000 over on CARES. As you recall, early on in the fiscal year, we really were between our 5307 formula funds. We were unable to basically get our next fiscal year grant through the FTA award process. So that put us behind in seeking reimbursement for our preventative maintenance. So what we did is we simply took that preventative maintenance that we would normally draw from our 5307 grant, which is the federal grant revenue you see on your budget to actual, and we drew those expenses against our FTA CARES reimbursement. That's the primary reason we show to have more in CARES draw than what we had budgeted. So, we'll see how that trends out as we get through the rest of the fiscal year, but it's likely that we'll be able to just retain that PM draw in that CARES reimbursement We'll probably finish the year a little bit over on CARES and a little bit under on federal grants. And then finally, I'll just direct your attention to the expenditure side of things. We continue to be very close to budget on personal services. That's basically our salary and wages. And then fuel costs are also coming in pretty close or in line with budget. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions on transportation, and then we can move on to parking.
Jason, what are the possible effects of the congressional failure to adopt the budget and continue federal funding? Are we concerned about either our federal grant revenues or our CARES reimbursements being delayed?
Not on the CARES, so the thing is, at this point, no, we don't really have a reason for concern, because whether it's the CARES funds or the formula funds, the money that we're spending now has actually already been apportioned, so it's already available, and that's one of the things we try to do is, if you will, we're as conservative as we possibly can with those federal funds. And so, for example, we are currently drawing on federal funds that are part of the FY21 federal fiscal year. And here we are in our city or trust FY22 fiscal year. So we're not reliant basically on that regular apportionment to get through the fiscal year on our funding. All right, so moving on to parking operations, and I know we have an executive session, so I'll speed up my comments here. But looking at parking, okay, page 4, parking operations. Again, drawing your attention to the bottom line of operating loss or income. We are operating through 3 months of the fiscal year at a surplus of $434,000. You can see that's derived primarily from exceeding our revenue budget, and that $271,000 variance that you see on total revenues can be attributed primarily to transient and event revenue. And basically what we're seeing on our parking operations is our monthly contract revenue is relatively stable, if you will. I mean, we're coming in a little bit under budget because we had projected some growth there. What we're really seeing is really the contract revenue isn't picking up. We're not getting a lot of new contract parkers. But the transient and the event revenue has bounced back faster than what we had anticipated. When we set the budget up, we projected throughout the year that as we went further into the fiscal year, we would likely see larger recoveries in revenues. And I think what we're seeing here is we basically have recovered our revenue, particularly with events and transient, faster than we thought. So I would anticipate if we're ahead of the recovery that we projected a bit, we're probably going to slow down as we go throughout the year. So in other words, our revenue estimates for the end of the fiscal year are more aggressive than our revenue estimates for the start of the fiscal year. We may not be able to hold this pace, right? So, but it's a good thing. We're operating at a surplus. We just may have less of a surplus as we get through the fiscal year.
So Jason, on the events there, you've got a budget of $919,000. So what are the major? I mean, I'm drawing a blank here. What are the major events that are going to drive us to get to $919,000?
So the major one is going to be the Thunder's payment to us for event parking. They're a great partner for us with our event parking operations, and I believe we typically receive that payment November. Corey's shaking his head. December. So we haven't received it yet, and so that will. And we have the budget set up to recognize that significant payment, like at one time during the year. So, yep. The flip side to that, though, is because and really credit to Corey and Republic, we're trying to operate our garages as efficiently as we possibly can. with some of the new technology that the trust has invested in our parking garages, we're able to basically leave the garages in transient mode, if you will, during many smaller events, whereas 2 to 3 years ago, we might have had more staffing, even at the smaller events. So really a lot of that overperformance you see in the transient revenue is because our technology is allowing us to really not have to officially event some of our garages for events. So we don't have the labor costs. And you can see that also in the expenditures where we're running under budget on our parking garage operations. So, yes, sir.
Do we have any parking garages outside of downtown?
No, they're all downtown.
Okay.
Well, I find it interesting if you look at and we're not going to have program reports, but you look at the occupancy, and I was looking at the convention center, and it's pretty much in line with the rest of our garages for a brand new garage. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'll conclude my comments on the financials just by directing your attention to Streetcar Operations. This is on page 7. Again, looking at the operating loss or income, you can see through 3 months of the fiscal year, we actually show to be operating at a loss, or our expenses have exceeded our revenues by about $40,000. Really, the disclaimer here is that some of the parts and supplies that we purchase for the streetcar are considered to be spare parts that can still be funded by MAPS 3. In the MAPS 3 streetcar program, there was an allocation for us as an operator for spare parts. And so the way that works from an accounting perspective is we incur the expense, it shows up in our budget to actuals, and then we seek reimbursement from the MAPS office. We have not received I don't know if we've received a reimbursement yet, but we will as we progress through the fiscal year. So all that to say that I don't have any concerns at this point of exceeding the budget long-term for the fiscal year. Happy to answer any other questions.
Any other questions? Then I would have a motion to approve item A. Motion passes, and then item B is budget actual for September 30th. All right, motion passes, thank you. Since we're not having any program reports today, then I would have any items from the trustee before we go into executive session. Oh. Okay. We received and motion passes. All right, that brings us up to date? All right, so and if there's no items from the trustees, Jason, any concluding comments? Since we come back in, we're usually adjourned, so.
Only one, and that's just to make sure everybody grabs a copy of their mass transit magazine where we were featured. So in case you need something for the coffee table at the house or something.
Congratulations to the team for that featured story.
All right, we'll adjourn to executive session. let's just do a voice vote on item, was it D? What?
Yeah, it's item H, I think.
H, okay.
I would move to approve item H.
Second.
All in favor?
You can't have multiple seconds. Somebody, who wants to be the second?
Voice vote,
Robert's going to be the second.
okay. Oh, no, we're back up.
We're back in? Okay, we're going to do a voice vote here because some are logged out.
James?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. I know some of the staff and Barney are on the way to Orlando, Florida for the APTA convention, so.
Yeah,
And Laura too, so.
yeah, I'm excited.
So bring back a lot of good information.
Got my sessions all lined out there. Going to
Well-
learn all kinds of stuff,
Well,
so
good.
I'm
All
excited.
right. All right, thank you. Well, we're adjourned then.